Hello everyone, it's Steenberg Avenue. I'm Eric with another somewhat spontaneous video. This has been on my mind for a little while, and I think it's about time we talk about it. So there are a lot of roller coasters out there that many consider overrated. Some I agree with. Things like Sky Rush and X2 and Magnum XL 200. I know I'm already getting quite a bit of hate for this one, but yeah. Those are rides I think a lot of people love, I don't like as much. However, when I ask people what the most overrated coaster is, I think, honestly, the majority say one ride. And I disagree. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about how I think it is the most, not really overhated because it's not necessarily hated, but it's not only a ride that gets way too much flack and too many people calling it overrated, but it's also one of the best roller coasters out there, best in its manufacturer, best in its park, and therefore, I think the hate is getting interestingly excessive, even if it's not necessarily the most negative of every roller coaster. So as a result, I decided I will be talking about it, trying to figure out how it got this reputation. And that roller coaster is Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. So yeah, off the bat, I love it. And also note, I have very limited footage of this ride, at least good footage, so the video itself may not look great, but just listen to what I'm saying here. So for the ride itself, I find it is the best wooden coaster by Great Coasters International, the best roller coaster at Kings Island, which already has a fantastic lineup. I dislike nothing about it. I find that the first drop is excellent. I think every moment after, airtime, phenomenal, the sense of speed, unbeatable. The ride is everything I like about the best RMCs, it's just a wooden coaster. So it stacks up against things like Iron Rattler and Twisted Colossus. It's pretty much in that same league as those and maybe even Lightning Rod, for example, for those who really like that one. I think these rides are pretty neck and neck. I would give Lightning Rod the slight edge, but moving on. The terrain is gorgeous. I love the way the ride works around the river rapids, and it's an unbeatable night ride, except for the other wooden coaster right next door, but besides that, it's a very high tier night ride. So overall, briefly, just to summarize, Mystic Timbers is a top 10 coaster for me, but for a lot of people, it's not. So let's try to understand this. In general, people say it's slow, doesn't have much airtime, and is rough. Now obviously, everyone has different rides experiences and all that. I've had rough rides and coasters people say are smooth, smooth people say are rough, and so on. So for me personally, this ride is glass smooth. I've never had an ounce of roughness on it, so I find that interesting. Not to mention, I think a lot of modern wooden coasters, while rough, aren't necessarily painful, so it doesn't really detract for me from the ride experience. But I suppose we all have those different tolerances and all that sort of thing. On the note of the speed, I don't know. I've ridden it in early morning and I never had an issue with that. I should note that this one I've gotten on quite a few times, and even after hearing it was overrated, on re-rides, things didn't change for me. I think I've probably had around 10 rides in it before. I've never had any ride that was less than top 15 roller coaster for me, which is a very, very high bar. So when I look at every YouTube video I make that's remotely related to Mystic Timbers, there's always a few people saying things about Mystic Timbers is not my favorite, I think it's slow and boring and rough. And this is a pretty recent thing. I feel only in the last few months have I started getting these comments, and people will start saying, "You're so stupid if you think Mystic Timbers is not bad." And at that point, I'm like, okay, it's evident that there are, to an extent, some haters of this one. And they've gotten enough to the point where they're moderately annoying, and I've decided to make this whole video. And they are certainly allowed to think that. They're allowed to leave the comments and all. Though I do still want to try to understand why. This is such a recent phenomenon, and I think part of it might have to do with, well, two things. First of all, the shed. I think the shed might actually be the main reason. And it was always the main fault of the ride when it came out, because it's not a massive thing to be hyped over, while it was the main part of the marketing. That said, they've improved the shed this year, so that really can't be it anymore, I feel like. But that maybe was it back when this kind of started in 2022. It's still very funny to me though, because the shed really wasn't that bad. Unless Kings Island's your home park, I can't imagine you were actually that hyped for it. But the other thing I think is factoring in is just the general path a lot of roller coasters take, and it's just hitting Mystic Timbers a lot harder. There are plenty of rides that get a lot of acclaim, and if there are even a few people who think it's not as good as others are saying, that can start a chain reaction of others agreeing, or it just so happens that more people who dislike the ride are getting on it for the first time, and as more people ride, naturally more people will dislike it, and more will like it. But that's just kind of the way it goes. I think you'll find that right when Steel Vengeance was opened, people were all saying it was the best in the world, because most people riding were hyped and did think so. And now there are definitely people who think it's overrated, some think it's bad. You know, it happens. Mystic Timbers definitely is getting hit harder than most though, to the point where I think some might disagree with me, but I think they're wrong on this one, genuinely. I think I'm now in the same position as Skyrush enjoyers. The people who make videos saying they like Skyrush, and others like me, telling them nah, restraints really bring it down and it's got faults besides that as well. I get that same sort of thing for praising Mystic Timbers now. So it's kind of funny. I do truly think that these rides are comparable in terms of how much people are calling them overrated. I dare say Mystic Timbers gets it harder now, because enough people have come around to hating Skyrush after it was really praised at first, that one's not as overrated anymore. So maybe people are starting to die down with that one. But at this point, Mystic Timbers is a freshly deemed overrated coaster. It's something that started out, a few years ago. Certainly there was some when it came out. It was somewhat overrated for a few people, I'm sure. But now it's getting quite noteworthy. And you know what? It's fine. Every time I've expected to go on and start agreeing with those people, it has not changed. So it's not ruining the ride for me. I'm getting just as much of a great experience every single time I go back on. So there is no real negative outcome here, except for the fact that those people are not enjoying one of the best roller coasters in the world. It is sadly a loss for them, and it happens with me too. There are lots of roller coasters I think are overrated, so naturally others get more out of it than I do. It's great that they do. I am very happy for them, and happy for myself that I am enjoying this ride that a bunch of people now don't. So I win in this scenario and lose in so many others. But that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed. Comment down below your thoughts on Mystic Timbers, and subscribe for more theme park content. I'll see you next time.